The Dragon Emperor's palace was quiet, except for the soft echo of his claws against the polished crystal floor. He moved slowly, each step leaving a faint shimmer of light. His golden scales reflected the sunlight that poured through the high windows, and his wings, folded neatly at his back, made him look even larger and more powerful. Yet today even his mighty heart felt heavy. In a corner of the palace, a small dragon hatchling struggled weakly in its nest. Its wing was twisted at an odd angle and it could barely lift itself. The hatchling's tiny claws scraped the crystal floor as it tried to stand, only to collapse again with a pitiful whimper. The Emperor watched silently, his large eyes narrowing. He had seen many hatchlings grow strong under his care, but this one seemed broken. He let out a low, rumbling sigh. "Perhaps it is too weak," he muttered to himself. "Perhaps it will never survive." His voice echoed like distant thunder, filling the grand hall. Around him, the air seemed colder, heavier, as if even the walls knew of the hatchling's struggle. Far away, on a small human colony, a young waitress named Lyra wiped down the last table of the day in the bustling cantina. Her uniform was slightly worn, her hands sticky from hours of serving, but her eyes sparkled with energy. Humans were small and fragile compared to the dragons, but they had a courage that often surprised those who met them. Lyra had no idea that soon she would meet one of the universe's most feared beings. When the palace emissaries arrived at the cantina, Lyra was curious but calm. They explained in clipped tones that the Dragon Emperor sought someone to care for a hatchling, a tiny dragon born weak and struggling to survive. Many humans would have been terrified, but Lyra only nodded. She had a soft heart and she could not turn away from someone in need, no matter how dangerous. Soon she found herself standing at the massive gates of the Dragon Emperor's palace. The doors were taller than any building she had ever seen, carved with images of dragons soaring through fire and stars. She felt small, almost invisible, but she held her head high. The guards, enormous dragons with silver scales, studied her warily. One of them stepped forward. "Do you understand what you are being asked?" he asked. His voice was deep, echoing like a rolling hill. "This hatchling is weak. It may die. Many have tried to help and failed." Lyra nodded, her hands clasped together. "I will do my best. I only ask for a chance." The guard's eyes softened just slightly and he stepped aside. Lyra walked forward into the palace hall. The floor was so smooth it reflected her small figure like a pool of water. The air smelled faintly of fire and magic, and somewhere above the Emperor's wings shifted, sending a shadow across the walls. When she reached the nest, the hatchling looked up with big, frightened eyes. Its tiny mouth opened in a weak squeak. Lyra bent down slowly, speaking in a soft, gentle voice. "Hello there, little one," she whispered. "I'm here to help you. You don't need to be afraid." The hatchling trembled, unsure what to make of this strange human. Its wing twitched in pain and it tried to push away. Lyra stayed calm. She knelt beside it, moving her hands carefully. She lifted the small dragon into her arms with a careful touch, supporting the twisted wing so it would not hurt. The hatchling pressed its tiny head against her chest and Lyra smiled. From the shadows the Dragon Emperor watched. His golden eyes, usually so sharp and fierce, softened as he saw the human holding his hatchling without fear. Her gentle words, her steady hands, her calm presence, something about it struck him. Never had a human seemed so strong even though she was small. Lyra carried the hatchling carefully across the hall, talking to it as she moved. "We'll try this," she said. "You'll see, little one. You are not alone." The hatchling's wings fluttered weakly, but there was a spark of life in its eyes. The Emperor felt something stir in his chest, something he had not felt for centuries. He had ruled with power, fear, and strength, believing that only the strong could survive. But here, in this quiet hall, a small human was showing a power he had never respected, courage mixed with kindness. And for the first time he wondered if perhaps strength was more than just fire and claws. Lyra placed the hatchling back in the nest, making sure it was comfortable. She smiled at it, brushing a small patch of dust from its golden scales. "Rest now," she said softly. "Tomorrow we will try again. You can do it. I know you can." The Emperor's gaze lingered on her, his massive heart heavy with thought. This human, so fragile, yet so brave, had already begun to change something inside him. And he had no idea how much more she would change his life in the days to come. The palace hall was silent again, except for the soft breathing of the hatchling. But now the silence felt different. It held promise. It held hope. And for the first time in a long time, the Dragon Emperor felt a flicker of something he thought he had lost forever: belief. Lyra stayed in the palace for the rest of the day, learning the hatchling's habits and needs. The tiny dragon, still weak, could barely lift its head, but it trusted her in a way it hadn't trusted anyone before. Whenever she approached, it would nuzzle her hand or make a soft squeak like a tiny laugh. The Dragon Emperor watched from his throne, hidden behind a row of pillars. His massive golden form seemed almost like part of the shadows, yet his eyes were fixed on Lyra. He had watched many dragons grow, cared for by other dragons, trained by humans, and tested by the fiercest tutors in the galaxy. But never had he seen anyone care for a hatchling like this. The Emperor felt something strange, curiosity mixed with admiration. Lyra's hands were careful as she cleaned the nest. She whispered to the hatchling, telling stories about her small home planet, about the people who worked hard but always smiled, and about the stars she had seen from her tiny window. The hatchling's eyes followed her every movement, its weak wings twitching in small excitement. The Emperor's claws dug into the floor, though not angrily. He wanted to move forward, to roar and command her to stop, to test her strength like he had tested every dragon and human before. But he couldn't. Something about the way she moved, her quiet confidence, stopped him. For the first time, the Dragon Emperor understood that not all power was shown in fire and wings. Some of it was shown in patience, gentleness, and care. As evening fell, the palace glowed with the soft light of twin moons outside the tall windows. Lyra lifted the hatchling in her arms again, trying to help it exercise its wings. "Come on, little one," she encouraged. "You can try. Just a little, just for me." The hatchling stretched weakly, flapping once, twice, and then gave up with a soft squeak. Lyra smiled and hugged it gently. The Emperor's chest shifted. He had never seen such determination. So small yet so brave. He realized that this human's courage was something dragons rarely possessed. They had power, yes, but not heart in the same way. Humans had heart, and sometimes, that heart could move even the strongest dragon. A sudden noise broke the quiet. One of the palace guards stepped forward, his silver scales glinting in the soft moonlight. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice low, "she is only human. Can we trust her? What if she fails? What if the hatchling dies?" The Emperor's tail lashed behind him, a flash of his usual fury, but then he stopped. He lowered his head and stared at the small human and the hatchling in her arms. The hatchling's soft squeak, the way it leaned into her, and her gentle smile answered all questions. He had already seen what she could do. "Watch and learn," he said softly, almost to himself. "She knows more than you think." For the next hour, Lyra tried something new. She placed the hatchling on the edge of the nest and let it try to step down onto the floor. At first, it stumbled, nearly falling. Lyra quickly caught it, whispering, "It's okay, little one. Try again." The hatchling wiggled in her arms, then flopped onto the floor carefully, taking one small step, then another. The Emperor's golden eyes widened. The hatchling, small and weak, was learning to move. Because of her, it had hope. The Emperor realized that hope was a dangerous thing. It made dragons and humans alike stronger than they realized. He had ruled with fear for centuries, believing that only power mattered. But this human, she showed him another kind of strength, one he had never considered. Strength mixed with care, courage wrapped in gentleness. Night deepened, and Lyra finally sat on the palace floor, letting the hatchling rest against her chest. She hummed a quiet tune from her home planet, a song of warmth and safety. The little dragon closed its eyes, a soft breath escaping as it drifted toward sleep. Lyra smiled, brushing a gentle hand across its tiny head. The Emperor watched, silent and still. He did not speak. He did not move. He only observed, feeling something he could not name. A small, weak hatchling, a tiny human, and the quiet bond forming between them were changing something inside him. He had ruled empires, conquered planets, and seen galaxies burn, but never had he seen something as powerful as this quiet courage. For the first time in centuries, the Emperor felt uncertainty. He wondered what it would mean to follow this human's example. To lead with care as well as power. To consider the weak as precious, not useless. To see a small human and a fragile dragon not as objects to be tested, but as beings with their own worth. The night passed quietly. The palace, usually cold and unfeeling, felt warmer, lighter. Lyra slept beside the hatchling, exhausted but smiling, and the Emperor retreated to the shadows, his mind alive with thoughts he could not yet speak aloud. Tomorrow he would watch again. And tomorrow he would begin to realize that this small human waitress had the power to change more than just the life of one hatchling. She might just change the life of a dragon emperor. The next morning, the palace was alive with soft light from the rising suns. Lyra woke early, careful not to wake the hatchling in the nest beside her. Its small chest rose and fell slowly, a faint squeak escaping as it dreamed. She smiled and brushed a gentle hand over its head. "Good morning, little one," she whispered. "Today we will try something new." The hatchling stirred, blinking its tiny eyes at her. It wiggled weakly as if it understood her words. Lyra carefully lifted it into her arms, supporting its twisted wing. She had learned how delicate it was, yet she could also feel its will to live, tiny and stubborn. Humans were not the strongest creatures in the galaxy, but they had patience and courage, and sometimes that was enough. The Emperor watched from a high balcony hidden in shadow. His golden eyes were fixed on her. He had not slept much, his mind racing with thoughts he had never expected to have. He had always believed that strength came from fire, claws and wings. But here, in his palace, he was watching something stronger than all of that: determination and care. Lyra carried the hatchling to a small open area in the palace hall. The floor was smooth and glimmering, perfect for gentle practice. "We are going to try walking today," she said softly. "Just a few steps. You can do it." The hatchling hesitated, its small claws slipping on the smooth surface. Lyra knelt beside it, holding her hands out. "I'm right here," she said. "I won't let you fall." Slowly the hatchling took a shaky step. Then another. Its wings trembled as it tried to keep balance. The Emperor's chest felt tight as he watched the tiny creature struggle. It was so small, so fragile, yet it did not give up. Lyra encouraged it quietly, clapping softly when it succeeded. "Yes, that's it. Good job." The hatchling squeaked in excitement, hopping slightly before wobbling again. The Emperor's heart, so used to cold order and fear, felt an unfamiliar warmth. He realized he had never truly watched life grow like this before. He had always expected dragons and humans to either succeed or fail, without caring about the moments in between. The palace guards, watching from the sides, whispered among themselves. "Why is the Emperor just watching?" one asked. "Shouldn't he test her? Make her prove she can handle it?" The Emperor did not answer. He only continued to watch Lyra and the hatchling. Every small success, every tiny step, seemed to teach him more than any lesson he had learned in centuries of ruling. Strength was not only power, it was patience, courage and care. And this human, so small and seemingly weak, had all of it in abundance. By midday, the hatchling had managed to take several steps on its own, wobbly but determined. Lyra's face shone with pride and she whispered, "You see? You are stronger than you think." The Emperor's eyes narrowed, not with anger but with thought. He had underestimated humans, underestimated what a single person could do to change lives. Then a loud alarm sounded in the palace. One of the outer gates had been breached by a group of rogue dragons. They were angry at the Emperor's decision to let a human care for one of his hatchlings. They believed humans were weak, unworthy, and dangerous. The Emperor's guards rushed to the gates, but Lyra stayed calm. She held the hatchling close and looked up at the golden figure above her. "They cannot hurt us," she said softly. "We will be okay. You trust me, right?" The hatchling pressed its head against her chest, and the Emperor felt a stirring of pride. He had never seen a human show such courage in the face of danger. He realized that bravery did not come from claws or fire, it came from heart. Lyra stepped forward, walking slowly toward the intruders, the hatchling safe in her arms. The rogue dragons stopped, surprised by her boldness. She did not raise her voice or threaten them. She simply stood there, calm and steady, her gaze unwavering. "We are not your enemy," she said quietly. "This hatchling is weak but it is precious. Do not harm it." The rogue dragons hesitated. None of them had seen a human face danger without fear. None had seen someone so small protect a creature so fragile. Slowly they backed away, retreating from the palace without a single attack. The Emperor's wings stretched slightly as he descended from the balcony. His massive shadow fell over Lyra, but he did not roar. Instead, he studied her with new understanding. She had faced danger without hesitation, and she had protected his hatchling with nothing but her courage and heart. He felt something change inside him. He had ruled through fear, power, and control, but this human had shown him another way. Compassion and bravery could be stronger than fire and strength. A small human had done what many dragons could not. That evening, Lyra returned the hatchling to its nest. It curled against her chest for a moment, then settled down to rest. She whispered, "Tomorrow we will try to fly." The hatchling made a soft squeak and Lyra smiled. The Emperor watched from the shadows again, silent but thoughtful. He had begun to see the world differently. Humans were not weak. They were strong in ways he had never understood. And this small human waitress who had shown courage, patience and care, was teaching him more about life and strength than centuries of rule had ever done. For the first time in a long time, the Dragon Emperor wondered if the rules he had lived by were wrong. Perhaps the future of his empire did not lie in fear and power alone. Perhaps it lay in courage, compassion, and hope. And he knew, without fully understanding why, that Lyra had already begun to change him forever. The next morning the palace was calm, but an undercurrent of tension ran through the halls. News had reached the Dragon Emperor that not all dragons agreed with his decision to let a human care for the hatchling. Some thought it was dangerous, even foolish. Some whispered that the hatchling's weak life was not worth saving. Lyra was unaware of the whispers as she moved through the palace hall, carrying the hatchling carefully. She hummed a quiet tune from her home planet, the song soft and comforting. The hatchling chirped in response, its tiny wings fluttering as if it knew she was there to protect it. She had learned much in the past days, how to support the twisted wing, how to encourage small steps, and how to speak to the hatchling in a way that calmed its fear. The Emperor watched silently from above, his golden eyes following her every move. He had never needed anyone to teach him patience before, but watching Lyra, he felt a strange respect growing. Humans were small, fragile, and often underestimated, but they had a quiet power that could change hearts, even the heart of a dragon emperor. Suddenly, a loud roar echoed through the palace gates. A group of high-ranking dragons, their scales glinting darkly, had entered the hall. Their eyes were filled with anger and disbelief. "What are you doing, Emperor?" one growled. "A human is caring for the weakest of our kind? This is madness. You will regret this." The Emperor's tail lashed behind him, but he remained still. He had expected challenges, but he did not expect them so soon. Lyra, sensing danger, held the hatchling closer. She did not panic. She did not flee. She simply stood her ground. One of the rogue dragons stepped forward, massive claws scraping the floor. "Move aside, human," it snarled. "This is none of your concern. You are weak. You cannot protect it." Lyra looked up, her eyes steady. "I am not afraid," she said simply. "This hatchling is alive because I care for it. And I will not let you hurt it." The dragons laughed, a deep, mocking sound that shook the walls. But Lyra did not move. She remembered the lessons of her life. Small people could be brave, courage could come in quiet forms, and the heart could sometimes be stronger than fire. She tightened her grip on the hatchling, her voice calm but firm. "You do not understand. Strength is not just about wings and fire. It is also about care, courage, and love. You can try to take it, but I will protect it." The Emperor felt a flicker of pride. He had never seen a human face dragons with such courage. She was not strong in size, but in spirit she was unmatched. And the hatchling, sensing her calm, nestled closer, finding courage in her arms. One of the rogue dragons lunged, intending to scare her, but Lyra stepped forward with surprising agility. She dodged with careful movement, protecting the hatchling while remaining calm. Her small size made her unpredictable, and the dragon's attack missed. She whispered softly to the hatchling, "It's okay. We are safe." The Emperor stepped forward, his massive wings unfolding, casting a golden shadow over the intruders. "Enough," he said, his voice deep and commanding. But even as he spoke, he did not strike. He watched Lyra closely. He had learned something he had never expected. The human's courage inspired him more than fear ever could. The rogue dragons hesitated. They were strong, but they had never seen a human stand so bravely against them. They had expected fear, trembling, weakness, but instead they saw quiet strength, the kind that shook even the heart of the Dragon Emperor. Slowly they backed away, leaving the hall without further challenge. Lyra exhaled, her hands still holding the hatchling. "See," she whispered. "Courage can protect even the smallest." The hatchling squeaked softly, almost as if agreeing. The Emperor's golden eyes softened. He stepped closer to Lyra, his massive head lowering to her level. "You are not like any human I have ever known," he said quietly. "You face danger without fear. You care without weakness. You have shown me strength I did not know existed." Lyra looked up at him, a small smile on her face. "I only wanted to help the hatchling. That's all." The Emperor studied her for a long moment. In that moment he understood something fundamental. Leadership was not just about power. It was about heart, courage, and care. It was about seeing the value in the weak and giving them a chance to grow. He turned to the hatchling, who was now peeking curiously from Lyra's arms. "You have been given a gift," he said, his voice softer than usual. "Not all hatchlings are lucky to have such care. And not all humans are capable of such courage. The hatchling chirped happily, flapping its tiny wings weakly. Lyra laughed softly, brushing its golden scales. "We will get stronger," she promised. "Together we will grow." The Emperor's heart, once heavy with rules, fear and power, felt lighter. He realized that a single human had changed the course of his thinking. And perhaps, one day humans and dragons could truly understand each other. That night, Lyra laid the hatchling down in the nest, softly humming a song. The hatchling curled up, safe and calm. The Emperor watched from his balcony, the soft light reflecting off his golden scales. He had learned something he had never known before. True strength could be found in the smallest of creatures, guided by courage, care, and heart. For the first time in centuries, the Dragon Emperor smiled, not with pride in power but with respect for bravery. And he knew that the human before him had begun to change not only the hatchling's life, but his own. The next morning, the palace was filled with golden sunlight. The air smelled faintly of magic and warmth. Lyra woke early as always, and carefully lifted the hatchling from its nest. Its small wings trembled, but its eyes shone with trust. Today was different. Today it would try something bigger. The Emperor watched from the balcony above, his massive golden form blending with the sunlight. He had spent days observing the human, and each day had changed him. Her courage, her patience, her quiet strength had begun to reshape his thoughts. He had ruled through fear and power for centuries, believing that strength alone mattered. But now he understood that heart and courage were just as important. Lyra carried the hatchling to the open hall, a wide space with polished floors that reflected their movements. "Today we will try flying," she whispered. The hatchling made a soft squeak, flapping its tiny wings. Lyra smiled. "Yes, little one. You can do it. I will help you." She knelt and placed the hatchling on her arm, guiding it gently. The hatchling hesitated, uncertain, but Lyra's calm voice encouraged it. "You can do it. I believe in you." Slowly, carefully, the hatchling leaped from her arm. Its wings flapped weakly and it wobbled in the air. It landed awkwardly on the floor, but it did not fall. Lyra clapped softly. "Good job. That's it. Keep trying." The Emperor's golden eyes glimmered with awe. He had never seen such determination. The hatchling, though small and weak, was trying again and again. And the human, so tiny in comparison to him, stood beside it, supporting it with love and courage. He realized then that he had been wrong to measure strength only by size and fire. This human had shown him something far greater: hope. Word spread quickly through the palace that the human had helped the hatchling attempt its first flight. Some dragons came to watch, skeptical at first. They expected weakness, expected failure, expected the human to falter. But they saw something different. They saw courage, care, and the quiet power of determination. Lyra encouraged the hatchling over and over, guiding it, praising it, and laughing softly when it stumbled. The hatchling grew bolder, flapping its wings higher each time, until finally, it lifted off the floor for a short, clumsy flight. The Emperor felt a thrill in his chest, a feeling he had not known in centuries. Pride. Joy. Something stronger, a deep sense of hope for the future. The hatchling landed again, panting slightly, and looked at Lyra with wide, shining eyes. She knelt and hugged it close. "You did it," she whispered. "You're flying." The Emperor lowered his massive head, almost hidden in the shadows of the balcony, and watched quietly. He had never felt anything like this before. Admiration for a human, respect for their courage, and even love for the small life they had nurtured. Finally, the Emperor descended into the hall. His enormous wings stretched behind him, casting a golden shadow over everyone present. The dragons and palace guards fell silent. Even Lyra froze slightly, unsure how he would react. He approached slowly, his claws barely making a sound on the polished floor. "You have taught me something I never understood," he said, his deep voice echoing. "Strength is not only in fire and wings. Strength is in heart, in courage, in the will to protect and care for those who cannot defend themselves." Lyra looked up at him, her hands still holding the hatchling. She smiled softly. "I only wanted to help," she said. "I never thought I could teach a dragon emperor anything." The Emperor's golden eyes glimmered with warmth. "You have changed more than the hatchling," he said quietly. "You have changed me. And perhaps, you have changed the future of our kind." He knelt slowly, bringing his massive head near the hatchling. The small dragon chirped happily, and the Emperor lowered a claw gently to touch it. He felt the fragility, the life, and the determination of the tiny creature. He understood then that every life, no matter how weak it seemed, could hold strength. Lyra laughed softly, brushing her hand across the hatchling's golden scales. "We will grow together," she said. You and I and everyone who wants to be strong in their own way. The Emperor nodded, a slow smile spreading across his massive face. He lifted his wings, letting the sunlight catch their golden edges. So be it, he said. From this day forward, those who are weak will not be ignored. Those who are small will not be dismissed. Strength is measured by courage and heart, not only by fire or claws. The palace erupted quietly with murmurs of approval. Dragons who had doubted the human's worth now watched her with newfound respect. And the hatchling, once weak and trembling, flapped its wings proudly, chirping joyfully. As the sun set, painting the sky in orange and pink, the Emperor and Lyra stood together in the hall, watching the hatchling attempt flight again. Each leap, each flap, each small success was a testament to hope, courage, and love. For the first time in centuries, the Dragon Emperor felt truly at peace. A human had shown him that even the smallest life could inspire greatness. A tiny hatchling had reminded him of hope. And a simple act of courage and care had changed not only the future of a dragon but the heart of an emperor. The hatchling landed on Lyra's shoulder, chirping happily, and the Emperor looked at them both, golden eyes gleaming. He had learned something no one could teach him in centuries of rule. True power was in protecting, caring, and believing in others. And in that moment, the palace, the dragons, and even the galaxy seemed to shine a little brighter, because a human had reminded them all what strength really meant.